In the realm of investigative journalism, Lily Sullivan's name held weight. Her articles were known for unraveling the enigmatic tapestries woven by conspiracy and deceit. She thrived on exposing the truth, dismantling falsehoods, and shedding light on the darkest corners of society. But there was one tale that had piqued her curiosity, one town whose whispered secrets had captured her attention. Hollowwood, nestled along the jagged cliffs of the coastline, exuded an air of mystique that had long haunted the region. The stories, the legends, and the rumors surrounding the town were as plentiful as the grains of sand that graced its shores. Whispers of curses, haunted mansions, and sinister rituals had permeated the neighboring towns, casting a shadow upon Hollowwood's reputation. It was precisely this intrigue that drew Lily to the coastal town. The prospect of unearthing the truth and unveiling the deception appealed to her investigative instincts, igniting a fire within her to restore Hollowwood's name. As she set foot upon the cobblestone streets, the haunting presence of Hollowwood made itself known. The decaying mansions, their once majestic facades now consumed by nature's relentless grasp, stood as haunting sentinels of forgotten grandeur. Shadows danced upon the cracked walls, whispering secrets that only the wind could decipher. The town square, a once thriving hub of activity, had been frozen in time. Its ancient oak tree, gnarled and twisted, seemed to bear witness to the town's tortured history. The stone fountain at its center, its waters murky and stagnant, mirrored the secrets hidden beneath Hollowwood's surface. Lily's keen eyes absorbed every detail, capturing the eerie charm of Hollowwood in her mind's eye. The winding alleys, shrouded in darkness even under the midday sun, the townspeople, their weathered faces etched with the weight of unspoken truths, regarded her with a mix of curiosity and caution. Chapter 1. The first rays of dawn stretched across the coastal town, painting the sky in hues of rose and gold, as if attempting to mask the impending darkness that lurked beneath its surface. Lily emerged from the mist that blanketed the cobblestone streets. Her slender figure, shrouded in a cloak of mystery, seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 untold stories, beckoning the curiosity of the locals as she ventured deeper into their midst. As Lily's gaze swept across the assembled townspeople, a portrait of conflicting emotions unfurled before her eyes. Their features were etched with the lines of a life lived, the weariness of secrets carried like burdens upon their shoulders. They stood as sentinels of a bygone era, both welcoming and guarded, caught between the desire for progress and the instinct to protect what little remained of their quaint existence. Lily's first lead, retired police officer George Thompson, awaited her by the stone fountain that stood at the heart of the square. Time had etched its mark upon his craggy features, each line telling a story of nights spent in pursuit of justice. His eyes, though dimmed by age, held a glimmer of lingering resolve, a flicker of knowledge that mirrored the depths of the town's darkest secrets. Thompson's gravelly voice matched the rugged landscape that stretched out before them, his words a testament to a lifetime of experiences. He began to recount the tales that had ignited Lily's relentless pursuit of truth. He spoke of strange occurrences that had plagued the town, of whispers that reverberated through dimly lit alleyways, and of an undercurrent of suspicion that swirled beneath the surface. The missing funds, the sudden wealth of a select few, and the accidents that defied explanation, all intertwined in a complex web that seemingly led back to one name: Mayor Richard Hastings. As Thompson's voice faded into the echoes of the town square, Lily Sullivan stood at the precipice of a choice. With a steely resolve, she made her decision. She would unravel the enigma that engulfed the coastal town, no matter the horrors that awaited her. Chapter 2. The moon hung high in the night sky, casting an ethereal glow over the coastal town as Lily Sullivan delved deeper into her investigation. Armed with her notepad and a steely glint in her eyes, Lily set out to seek those who had encountered the unusual incidents and peculiar happenings that marred the town's pristine facade. She traversed the dimly lit streets, shrouded in a hazy mist, capturing the essence of an enigmatic aura that clung to the town like a phantom veil. The first interviewee on her list was Mrs. Thompson, a widow whose husband had mysteriously vanished without a trace. The townspeople spoke in hushed tones about her haunted existence, the desolation etched into her weary eyes. Lily's footsteps echoed through the dimly lit hallway as she approached Mrs. Thompson's door, the anticipation bubbling within her. With a trembling hand, Mrs. Thompson opened the door, revealing a dilapidated room that mirrored the fragments of her shattered life. The air carried a palpable sense of unease as Lily stepped inside, her eyes searching for clues amidst the layers of forgotten memories. Mrs. Thompson's eyes glistened with a mix of fear and resignation as she sat across from Lil. The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows on the worn furniture, heightening the sense of unease that permeated the room. With a trembling voice, Mrs. Thompson began to recount the night her husband disappeared.
"It was a moonless night, my dear, the kind that seems to devour any trace of light,"
Mrs. Thompson began, her voice barely above a whisper.
"The air was heavy, pregnant with an ominous energy that hung around our modest home. As I lay in bed, my eyes darted nervously to the darkened corners of the room, where shadows seemed to writhe and dance in perverse delight."
A chill ran down Lily's spine as she leaned in, captivated by the tale that unfolded before her. Mrs. Thompson's voice quivered, drawing Lily further into the unsettling narrative.
"My husband, John, had always been a pillar of strength, his presence a comforting shield against the terrors of the night. But that evening, something had changed. I could see it in his eyes, a glimmer of apprehension, as if he carried a burden too heavy to bear. He muttered incoherent words under his breath, his voice tainted by an otherworldly quality that sent shivers down my spine."
Mrs. Thompson paused, her hands trembling in her lap before continuing.
Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, a hollow, haunting sound that echoed through the house as if it heralded the arrival of a malevolent force. John rose from the bed, his movements slow and deliberate, as though he was being drawn towards the unknown. I pleaded with him to stay, to ignore the call that lured him into the abyss, but he was possessed by an unseen power.
Lily leaned closer, her breath catching in her throat. The room seemed to grow darker, the very air thickening with a palpable sense of dread.
As John stepped outside, I followed him, desperate to save him from the clutches of whatever awaited him in the night. The moonless sky swallowed us whole, enveloping us in an inky blackness that obscured the world around us. The only sound was the haunting whispers that seemed to emanate from the surrounding woods, their words twisting and contorting into a sinister symphony.
Mrs. Thompson's voice wavered, mirroring the tension in the room.
I watched in horror as John vanished into the depths of the forest, his form swallowed by the ominous shadows. My heart pounded in my chest, the weight of uncertainty. I called out his name, but the only response was a deafening silence that echoed through the trees.
Tears welled up in Mrs. Thompson's eyes as she concluded her harrowing tale.
"He never returned, Lily. No trace of him was ever found. It was as if the darkness had claimed him, consumed him whole, leaving me with nothing but unanswered questions and an emptiness that gnaws at my soul to this day."
The room fell into a heavy silence, the weight of Mrs. Thompson's story hanging in the air. Lily sat there, haunted by the tale of a man, lost to the night, drawn into a web of mystery and horror that still sent chills down her spine. Chapter 3. Lily Sullivan's footsteps echoed through the desolate streets as she left Mrs. Thompson's house, her mind swirling with the chilling tale of the mysterious disappearance. The moon hung low in the sky, casting long, eerie shadows that danced in the dimly lit alleyways. A shiver ran down Lily's spine, a subtle unease settling in her bones as she made her way to the next subject of her investigation, Mr. Jacobs, a local business owner. The air grew colder. As Lily approached Mr. Jacobs' shop, its facade a stark contrast to the vibrant storefronts that once lined the street. The atmosphere was heavy with an otherworldly presence, an invisible weight that bore down upon her. She hesitated for a moment, the creaking of an old sign swinging eerily in the wind. Taking a deep breath, Lily pushed open the door to Mr. Jacobs' establishment. The bell hanging above the entrance jingled softly, its sound swallowed by the heavy silence that permeated the room. The dim lighting cast long, haunting shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere that seemed frozen in time. Mr. Jacobs, a gaunt figure with sunken eyes, looked up from his workbench as Lily entered. His face wore the weary expression of a man burdened by the weight of secrets. Lily could sense the tension in the room, as if an invisible force wrapped its icy fingers around her. As Lily approached, Mr. Jacobs's gaze met hers, his eyes filled with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. His voice, barely above a whisper, broke the silence.
You seek answers, Miss Sullivan, but tread carefully. There are forces at play in this town that go far beyond what meets.
Lily nodded, her eyes never leaving Mr. Jacobs.
I understand the risks, Mr. Jacobs. The shadows that lurk in this town have already taken so much. I need to know the truth, no matter how harrowing it may be.
In the dimly lit room of an old tavern, Lily Sullivan leaned forward, her eyes fixed on Mr. Jacobs. The wrinkles etched deep lines on his face, telling tales of a life burdened by the weight of unspeakable horrors. He took a slow sip of his whiskey, the clinking of the glass breaking the silence that hung in the air.
I heard a tale, Miss Sullivan.
Mr. Jacobs began, his voice a gravelly whisper that sent shivers down Lily's spine.
A tale that curls the blood and freezes the marrow in your bones. It was whispered to me in hushed tones, as if the very walls had ears.
Lily's curiosity burned, her senses attuned to every word Mr. Jacobs uttered. With a steady voice, she encouraged him to continue.
It was on a moonless night, the wind howling through the abandoned streets.
Mr. Jacobs continued, his eyes distant, lost in the depths of the past.
I found myself wandering near Hollowwood Manor, drawn by an inexplicable force that compelled me to uncover its secret.
He paused, his breath catching as he relived the terror that had gripped him that night.
The mansion stood like a shadowy sentinel, its windows black voids that seemed to stare into your very soul. But it was the sound that lured me in, a mournful wailing carried on the wind, as if the spirits of the damned had found their voice.
Lily leaned closer, captivated by the chilling tale. The room seemed to grow colder, as if the presence of unseen horrors had seeped into its very walls.
I ventured cautiously through the overgrown gardens, the crunch of fallen leaves beneath my feet echoing in the stillness. It was then that I saw it, an ethereal figure, pale and translucent, gliding through the darkness.
Lily's heart quickened, her imagination conjuring the image of the ghostly apparition. She held her breath, waiting for Mr. Jacobs to continue.
The figure led me to the mansion's grand entrance, its doors groaning in protest as they swung open. I hesitated, fear coursing through my veins, but something within me urged me forward. The haunting melody of a music box reached my ears, its sweet notes piercing the night's eerie silence.
Lily's eyes widened, envisioning the scene as if she stood alongside Mr. Jacobs, engulfed in a surreal nightmare.
Step by trepidatious step, I traversed the mansion's shadowy corridors.
Mr. Jacobs whispered, his voice quivering with a mixture of dread and fascination. He took another sip of his whiskey, the amber liquid trembling in his trembling hand.
And then, in the heart of the mansion, I found myself in a room bathed in flickering candlelight.
Mr. Jacobs continued, his voice barely a whisper.
There, before an altar shrouded in darkness, the ritual unfolded. The Mayor Hastings himself, stood at the center, clad in a ceremonial robe, a sinister smile playing upon his lip.
Lily's eyes widened, her mind racing to comprehend the horrors that Mr. Jacobs had witnessed.
The room was filled with hooded figures, their eyes reflecting a twisted devotion.
Mr. Jacobs uttered, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and disbelief.
As I watched in horror, the mayor raised a sacrificial blade, gleaming with malevolence. And then the unimaginable occurred. A young woman, bound and helpless, was placed upon the altar, her eyes filled with terror.
The room grew heavy with the weight of the revelation. Lily could hardly fathom the darkness that lurked beneath the town's tranquil surface.
But here's the twist, Miss Sullivan.
Mr. Jacobs continued, his voice trembling with a mix of awe and defiance.
The young woman, though captive, possessed an inner strength that the mayor had not anticipated. She had infiltrated his sinister plans, and in that pivotal moment, she revealed her true purpose.
Lily leaned forward, her eyes locked with Mr. Jacobs, her heart racing with anticipation.
With a sudden surge of power, the young woman broke free from her restraint.
Mr. Jacobs whispered, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and admiration.
In a blinding flash, she unleashed her own secret, exposing the mayor's dark deeds to the unsuspecting crowd of onlookers. I vowed to expose the mayor and his dark deeds, to bring an end to the horrors that plagued Hollowwood Manor. But the deeper I delved, the more perilous it became. Ensnared in a web of complicity, fear, and the mayor's sinister influence.
A gasp escaped Lily's lips. The room fell silent, the weight of Mr. Jacobs' tale lingering in the air. Lily's mind whirled, the horrors she had uncovered. She understood that this man was scared as she was too, knowing that her own journey had only just begun, and the darkness that awaited her was far more treacherous than she could have ever imagined. Chapter 4. The day wore on. Each interview peeled back another layer of deception, exposing the tendrils of corruption that coiled like venomous serpents. Whispers of misused funds, clandestine meetings, and the mayor's dark influence echoed through the dimly lit rooms, fueling Lily's determination to bring the truth to light. But it was during her conversation with Miss Roberts that Lily stumbled upon a revelation that sent shivers down her spine. Lily's heart raced with anticipation as she entered Miss Roberts' dimly lit living room. Miss Roberts, a former town council member, beckoned her to sit on a faded velvet armchair, her eyes brimming with a mix of fear and determination.
"Listen closely, Miss Sullivan,"
Miss Roberts began, her voice hushed and filled with trepidation.
"What I am about to share with you is a tale that has haunted this town for generations."
Lily leaned forward, her senses heightened, ready to absorb every detail. She sensed that Miss Roberts held the key to unraveling the enigma that plagued Hollowwood.
"Long ago,"
Miss Roberts continued, her voice barely above a whisper,
"there was a young woman named Abigail Hawthorne. She lived in Hollowwood during a time when darkness crept through the streets and superstition gripped the hearts of the townspeople."
Lily's eyes widened, captivated by the tale that unfolded before her. She could almost feel the weight of history bearing down upon her.
"Abigail possessed an extraordinary gift,"
Miss Roberts explained, her gaze locked with Lily's.
"She could communicate with spirits, bridging the gap between the living and the dead, but her powers were feared and misunderstood, and the townspeople labelled her a witch."
Lily's imagination painted vivid images of Abigail, an outcast caught in a web of fear and suspicion.
"One fateful night,"
Miss Roberts continued, her voice trembling,
"Abigail was accused of cursing the town, of bringing misfortune upon its inhabitants. In a fit of hysteria and madness, they gathered in the town square, fueled by their fear and desperation, and set fire to her cottage. But here's where the tale takes a sinister turn."
Miss Roberts said, her eyes filled with both horror and
Before
a
her
sense of
demise,
revelation.
Abigail vowed revenge upon those who had wronged her. She bound her vengeful spirit to a forbidden diary, a tome imbued with dark energy.
Lily's mind swirled with a mixture of intrigue and unease. The presence of such a malevolent artifact seemed to explain the town's twisted history.
For generations, the diary passed down from one unsuspecting
Miss
soul
Roberts
to the
continued, her voice growing more urgent.
next. It whispered secrets to its keepers, slowly poisoning their minds and hearts. Those who succumbed to its influence were driven to commit unspeakable acts.
Lily's pulse quickened, and she realized the depth of the darkness that had enshrouded Hollowwood. She could almost feel the tendrils of the cursed diary weaving their way through the town's tapestry of corruption.
As I delved deeper into
Miss
the
Roberts
town's
confessed,
secrets,
her voice shaking.
I stumbled upon the diary. Its pages were filled with the twisted musings of past keepers, their descent into madness captured in chilling detail.
Lily's mind was consumed by a macabre curiosity, yearning to uncover the secrets within those cursed pages.
But the diary is a siren's call.
Miss Roberts cautioned, her eyes pleading.
It seduces, it corrupts. Many who have sought its power have paid a grave price.
Lily nodded, acknowledging the danger that awaited her, yet unable to resist the allure
The diary
of uncovering
holds the
truth.
key to the darkness that has plagued Hollowwood.
Miss Roberts whispered, her voice laden with both dread and determination.
But be warned, Miss Sullivan, the closer you get to its secrets, the greater the cost.
Lily left Miss Roberts' house, her mind swirling with the weight of the tale she had just heard. The curse that had gripped Hollowwood, the forbidden diary that held the town's darkest secrets. They were pieces of a puzzle she couldn't ignore. With each encounter, Lily's skepticism waged a silent battle against her burgeoning belief. The intricacies of the corruption web were as captivating as they were unsettling. A labyrinth of deceit and betrayal. Doubt clawed at her mind, threatening to unravel her resolve as she questioned her own sanity amidst the maze of darkness that entangled the town. As the evening sky painted the town in dusky hues, Lily retreated to her temporary abode, a small room in a guest house. She sat at the rickety wooden table, surrounded by piles of evidence and cryptic notes. Shadows danced on the walls, their macabre ballet mirroring the intricate dance of corruption that Lily sought to expose. Chapter 5. The moon hung low in the night sky, casting an ethereal glow over the coastal town of Hollowwood. Its pale light filtered through the dense fog that settled like a shroud, obscuring the cobblestone streets and ancient buildings. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, as if the very air held its breath, aware of the horrors lurking in the shadows. Lily ventured further into the heart of the town's dark secrets. Her footsteps echoed through the deserted streets, their sound muffled by the mist that seemed to swallow her presence. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl or the rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth. As Lily approached Hollowwood Manor, its imposing silhouette emerged from the mist, like a specter rising from the depths of the unknown. The mansion loomed before her, its decaying facade a testament to the passage of time. The windows, once elegant and inviting, now stood boarded up, as if concealing the horrors within. Cautiously, Lily pushed open the creaking iron gate that guarded the mansion's entrance. Its hinges protested in a symphony of rusty groans, sending chills down her spine. She stepped onto the overgrown path. The front door, covered in layers of peeling paint, stood ajar, beckoning Lily to step into the abyss. Hesitation lingered in her heart, mingling with her curiosity. With a deep breath, she crossed the threshold, and the door creaked shut behind her, trapping her in a world of shadows and uncertainty. The entry hall stretched out before her, its grandeur now a faded memory. The walls, once adorned with exquisite tapestries, were now tattered and covered in a film of dust. The scent of decay and mildew hung heavy in the air, mingling with a musty odor that permeated the mansion's ancient timbers. Lily's flashlight cast eerie beams of light, revealing fragments of the mansion's former glory. The ornate chandelier, now tarnished and shattered, dangled precariously overhead, The marble floor, cracked and worn, whispered secrets of forgotten footsteps and whispered conversations. She ventured deeper into the mansion, her senses heightened, attuned to the slightest change in the atmosphere. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional scuttling of unseen creatures or the distant sound of a floorboard groaning under an invisible weight. Each step she took echoed through the mansion, as if awakening dormant spirits that slumbered in the shadows. In a room shrouded in darkness, Lily discovered a collection of aged books and artifacts. The shelves sagged under the weight of forgotten knowledge, their contents a treasure trove of forgotten tales. She reached out, her trembling hand caressing the weathered spines, tracing the faded titles as if seeking guidance from the past. Among the books, she found a worn journal, its pages brittle with age. As she delicately turned the pages, the words of a long-dead author whispered to her, revealing the secrets of Hollowwood Manor. The journal chronicled the tragic history of the mansion, its former occupants tormented by their own demons and cursed by the sins of their ancestors. Lily's heart raced as she read about a series of ritualistic sacrifices performed within the mansion's walls. Each victim, chosen for their innocence and purity, became a vessel for a malevolent force, fueling the darkness that consumed the town. The descriptions of horrific scenes and unspeakable acts chilled her to the core, but she couldn't tear her eyes away from the revelations before her. Driven by a relentless pursuit of truth, Lily delved further into the mansion's depths. Guided by the cryptic clues she uncovered, she descended into the dimly lit basement, the air thick with a stale dampness that clung to her skin. In the heart of the basement, Lily discovered a hidden chamber, its entrance concealed behind a crumbling wall. She pushed aside the loose bricks, revealing a room steeped in darkness and dripping with an otherworldly aura. The walls were adorned with disturbing symbols etched into the stone with meticulous precision, their meaning lost to time. Within the chamber, Lily found a sacrificial altar, stained with ancient blood and adorned with relics of forgotten rituals. Her breath caught in her throat as she realized the true nature of Hollowwood Manor. It was not just a decaying mansion. It was a gateway to unspeakable horrors, a breeding ground for the darkness that plagued the town. As the realization settled upon her, a chill wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing her flashlight and plunging her into total darkness. In that moment, doubt crept into Lily's mind, gnawing at her sanity. Was she strong enough to confront the malevolence that dwelled within Hollowwood Manor? Or would she become another victim, swallowed by the darkness and forgotten? Chapter 6. Just as Lily was about to step closer to the altar, a voice, dripping with sinister satisfaction, shattered the silence.
Ah, Lily Sullivan, the relentless seeker of truth. How fitting that you have come to witness the culmination of my plans.
Lily spun around, her eyes narrowing as she faced the source of the voice. Mayor Richard Hastings, his charismatic facade now stripped away, stood before her, a predatory smile curling his lips. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of malevolence and triumph.
You thought you could expose me,
the mayor hissed, his voice laced with an underlying madness. Lily's pulse quickened, a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. She knew she was in the belly of the beast. Her mind raced, searching for a way out, but escape seemed elusive within the confines of the menacing chamber. Lily's resolve hardened, her eyes locked with the mayor's, her voice filled with a steely determination.
Your reign ends here, Mayor Hastings. The truth will be revealed, and justice will prevail.
A mirthless laugh echoed through the chamber as the mayor's eyes gleamed with manic fervor.
You underestimate the power that resides within these walls, Lily Sullivan. I have prepared for this moment, and you will serve as the final sacrifice to solidify my hold over this cursed town.
Before Lily could react, a sudden gust of wind extinguished the candles, plunging the room into darkness. Panic gripped her as she felt unseen hands seize her, restraining her movements. The room filled with whispered incantations, each word seeping into her consciousness, a relentless assault on her sanity. But Lily had prepared for this moment. In the midst of the chaos, she reached into her pocket, producing a small vial containing a powerful counterspell. With a swift, practiced motion, she shattered the vial against the ground, releasing a blinding burst of light that dispersed the darkness and disrupted the mayor's wicked ceremony. As the room flooded with illumination, the townspeople burst through the doors, drawn by the commotion and the truth Lily had uncovered. Their collective rage and determination overwhelmed the mayor, freeing Lily from their clutches. Mayor Hastings, his grand plan crumbling before his eyes, stared at Lily with a mix of fury and disbelief, his secrets laid bare for all to see. The authorities, alerted by the townspeople, arrived on the scene, apprehending the mayor. Chapter 7. The moon hung low in the night sky, casting an eerie glow over the coastal town of Hollowwood. The air was heavy with anticipation as the townspeople gathered in the town square, their faces etched with a mixture of fear, determination, and curiosity. Whispers, like ethereal tendrils, danced through the crowd, carrying rumors of the impending confrontation with Mayor Richard Hastings. Lily Sullivan, clad in a dark coat that seemed to blend seamlessly with the shadows, stood at the heart of the gathering, her presence commanding attention. The wind whispered through the empty streets, carrying an unsettling chill that made the hairs on the back of Lily's neck stand on end. Her eyes surveyed the faces before her, searching for allies, for those who had found the strength to stand against the darkness that had shrouded their lives for far too long. As the silence stretched, a hushed murmuring began to sweep through the crowd. The town's collective gaze turned toward the steps of the old town hall, where Mayor Hastings, a figure of authority wrapped in darkness, emerged from the shadows. His eyes, glinting with a sinister intensity, scanned the faces of the townspeople, attempting to gauge their loyalty, their willingness to defy him. Lily, her heart pounding, stepped forward, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife.
Mayor Hastings,
she began, her tone laced with combination of firmness and a hint of vulnerability.
Today we confront the shadows that have consumed this town for far too long. The time for deception and manipulation is over. It is time for the truth to prevail.
The crowd shifted uneasily, their eyes darting between Lily and the mayor, unsure of what awaited them. Mayor Hastings, his charismatic facade crumbling, stepped forward, his voice dripping with false charm.
My dear townspeople,
he began, his words laced with honeyed deceit.
You must understand, the curse that has plagued our town for generations cannot be easily vanquished. It is a force beyond our control, and I have done what I can to protect you all.
A murmur of disbelief rippled through the crowd, a collective awakening to the manipulation they had endured. Lily's eyes narrowed, her voice filled with a renewed strength.
Mayor Hastings, your reign of lies ends here. We have seen through your web of deceit, your exploitation of the curse for your own gain. We demand justice, the truth that you have hidden for far too long.
A hush fell over the crowd as Lily took a deep breath, her voice a delicate whisper that carried through the stillness of the night.
My dear townspeople, I stand before you today to reveal a truth so haunting, so twisted that it will forever change the fabric of our existence.
Whispers of unease echoed through the crowd, as Lily's words hung heavy in the air. With a dramatic pause, she continued, her eyes glinting with an unsettling mix of determination and sorrow.
In my search for the truth, I stumbled upon a journal, hidden away in the depths of Hollowwood Manor. Its yellowed pages whispered of a horrifying secret, a recipe for a drug that clouded the minds of the townspeople, rendering them susceptible to the mayor's control.
A collective gasp swept through the crowd as Lily's revelation sent shivers down their spines. The weight of the truth bore down upon them, their eyes widening in disbelief and horror.
But that was not all.
Lily's voice quivered, mirroring the tremor of unease that coursed through the onlookers.
Within those pages, I discovered a chilling revelation. The mayor and those before him, driven by their insatiable lust for power, performed sacrifices.
Lily's voice rose.
The madness that befell those who possessed this journal was not due to any dark curse, but rather the weight of their own guilt. They believed in the twisted tale, and their minds succumbed to the horrors they perpetuated.
As Lily spoke, her words etched vivid images in the minds of the townspeople. The specter of a deceptive regime, the suffocating grip of fear, and the realization that they had been pawns in a sinister game of power. A surge of determination swept through the crowd, their faces transformed from fear to defiance. The revelation had ignited a flame within their hearts, a hunger for liberation from the shadows that had plagued their lives. In a desperate attempt to maintain control, Mayor Hastings turned to the townspeople, his voice now laced with an undercurrent of desperation.
You know not what you ask for.
He spat, his eyes flickering with a blend of fury and fear.
The curse is real, and the consequences of revealing the truth will be dire.
But the townspeople, emboldened by Lily's revelations, stood their ground, their collective will overpowering the mayor's last ditch attempt to maintain his grip on power. They stepped forward, their voices rising in unison, demanding justice, demanding freedom from the darkness that had plagued their lives for far too long. Epilogue. The once enshrouded town of Hollowwood had been irrevocably changed by the revelations brought to light by Lily Sullivan's relentless pursuit of the truth. The weight of secrecy and deception that had suffocated the townspeople for generations had finally been lifted, replaced with a newfound sense of unity and purpose. As the days turned into weeks, investigations were launched and justice was served. Mayor Richard Hastings, stripped of his mask of authority, was brought to trial for his crimes. The townspeople, who had once feared him, now stood as witnesses, recounting the horrors they had endured under his rule. The trial exposed the sinister depths of the conspiracy, revealing the extent to which the mayor had manipulated and exploited the curse myth to maintain control over the town. The journal, once a symbol of terror, became a crucial piece of evidence in the quest for justice. Lily Sullivan's investigative journalism had not only exposed the truth, but it had also ignited a spark of hope in the hearts of the townspeople. They had seen through the deception and were determined to rebuild their community, free from the shackles of fear and manipulation. The transformation of Hollowwood did not happen overnight, but with time, the town began to heal. The haunted mansions were restored to their former glory, and the cobblestone streets, once shrouded in darkness, now bustled with life and renewed purpose. The curse, once a foreboding specter that loomed over the town, faded into the annals of history. It had never been a malevolent force. Rather, it was the collective burden of the past, the weight of secrets and unspoken truths that had haunted the town for generations. As the townspeople embraced the truth and confronted their past, the curse lost its hold over them. And so, the tale of Lily Sullivan's investigation into the enigmatic town of Hollowwood came to an end. Her name, once renowned for unraveling the enigma of deception, was now etched in the town's history as a catalyst for change and a champion of truth. The story of Hollowwood and its transformation would continue to be told for generations, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the light of truth would prevail.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next story.